what's going on? I been thinking about doing a video like this for a while, and I decided, you know what? No time like the present. Don't need any big fancy cameras, big fancy lighting. I'm using the Dan Lok approach, and just giving you some good content, and hopefully this helps somebody out there. So, how to write a successful grant? Let me give you a little bit of backstory myself. First of all, I've been doing music for since I was about 12 years old. I won't reveal my age, but let's just say I've been doing it for 20 plus years. And in that time, I've probably done what a lot of you have done. Just created, put it out, created, put it out, created, put it out. And when you continue to do that when you're younger, it's fun. You know what I mean? It's very exciting. You have the idea of being signed by a major label on the horizon, and and you're like, hey, I just have to continue down this road, and eventually something will pop. Now, as you get a little bit older and you start to get a little bit wiser, you start to realize, okay, well, maybe this is not going to work out the way I originally thought it was. Then when you get even a little bit older, then the stark reality of like, oh, wait a minute, what if I don't make it in the way that I planned I was going to? And, I don't really have a plan B. So I kind of reached that point for myself, and I realized, I'm like, okay, well, I got to put the brakes on here, and I gotta come up with a new game plan. Not that the end goal was different, but the way that I was going to get there was different. So first things first, I had to change what my view of success was. And with the advent of social media, with the ability for me right now to be able to record this video from my cell phone and have it reach everybody in the world, that changed everything. Now, the fact that it changed everything didn't change anything for me at first, because you have to wrap your mind around the reality that you can actually do this for yourself. And a lot of people are still tied into the old method that, I want to get signed, I want to get signed, I won't be as huge as I want to be if I don't get signed. And so I would say that's the very first thing you have to wrap your mind around, is that you do not need to get signed, first and foremost. That you can build a strong following of your own just by being diligent and putting up great content on different social media platforms. You have to be consistent, first of all, and you have to have great content. Everybody knows this. Paying for views, paying for followers. I mean, if you've done it, you'll see that it actually doesn't work. You don't get the engagement, and most importantly, you're not getting sales, which is really what this all boils down to. Now, with the decrease in music sales, physical music sales, we all know that the shift has gone almost completely into streaming. So now that's a totally different animal that you now have to conquer. So yes, there are streaming services which will help you get streams and stuff like that, but they're essentially just the same as the old guys, the pay for play. So once again, you have to create great music, you have to be consistent, and you have to put it out there. Now, okay, now that we get past the whole point of changing your mindset on success, secondly, it's what you guys all came here to this video for, about grants. Now, a couple of years ago, I decided, you know what, I need to really take a look at these grants a lot harder and see what I can get. So I sat down, my pen and pad, and I started writing. And happy to say I was successful. So in the first year, I got 20,000 in music grants. And at first I thought it was a fluke. But then I went back over and I really looked at my grants. And one thing that really stuck out to me is that I spoke about myself. I really was just talking about the raw realities of me, my fears, my aspirations, and more than anything, the feedback I've gotten from these different bodies is that they want to connect to you as a real person. They don't want to hear these lofty stories about how you're a one-of-a-kind artist and you're revolutionary. It's just like they've heard it all before. What about you makes you unique? What about you makes you different? That is the very first thing you have to talk about in a grant. You have to be able to connect with the reader on the other side so that they can say, hey, you know what? This person's put in the work. They have the numbers to prove it. They have the music to prove it. Now let me give them that little extra push. So the first thing is authenticity. Be authentic. When you start writing and you start getting into using a lot of big words that maybe you don't understand, that's going to come across to the reader and to the juror. And right away, that's going to be a red flag. And chances are that could be one of the things that make your grant not be successful. Secondly, I would say you need a peer group. You need people to be able to read over your grant and really give you constructive criticism. And you have to be able to take that constructive criticism. I mean, if grammar is not your strong suit, then maybe you need to hire somebody to do the grammatical portion of your grant writing. But I would definitely suggest that you yourself write the body, and then from there you can always hire somebody to look over and make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's. Um, Three, I would say, definitely enlist the help of the different governing bodies. So they have emails. You can email supervisors, and you can ask them advice, and you can ask them questions before submitting, because like the saying says, there's only one chance at a first impression. So I suggest you use these resources and really use them. If you got to send 10 emails, send 10 emails. Don't be worried about upsetting anybody or bothering somebody. This is their job. This is what they're there to do. Um, Now, as far as the nuts and bolts of writing the grant, I mean, you have to be a good writer. I mean, that goes without saying. It's the same as with your music. If you're not a great musician, don't expect to get a large following and a lot of fans, because if your music is not great, I mean, we all know that it's going to fall flat on the ears of the listeners. So, if you're not a great writer, what do you do then? Well, this is the opportunity when you can always enlist the services of a grant writer. And you will sit with a grant writer, or you can do it via Skype or do it via email. And essentially, you can give them access to your grants, to your grant profile, where they can go in and fill in certain pieces of information for you. Now, I still do stress that it's important that you be the author of your grant, because nobody knows you like you. So even if you are hiring a grant writer, you need to be very involved in the process. You can't just dump it off on them and say, hey, write this grant for me, because I've tried that and it didn't work. So hopefully this helps somebody out there. If there's any more information you want more in depth, um, feel free to message me, and I will provide you with any information I know. I'm going to include some links to some of the resources that I use. And yeah, I just hope that this helps somebody out there. And I'm going to continue to put up more content in the space of grant writing and all things entrepreneurship. So this is Delio, and I'll talk to you all soon.